Okay. Awesome. Now we're recording. I am here with Laura. And Laura, I actually wanted to ask you, is your last name Eiman or Eamon?
Iman.
Eiman. Okay, fantastic. I'm here with Laura Eiman, and I would love you to introduce yourself because I have seen everything on social media that you have done. It's a lot. So I'd love if you could introduce yourself.
Great. Well, Bailey, thank you for having me on. I'm honored that you asked me to speak with you and to all of your followers. So I'm Laura Eiman. I hail from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm 70 years old. Most importantly, the proud mother of two kids and two grandchildren. And I have led my life always fascinated by personal growth. It's always been kind of something in my blood. And sure enough, as an adult, I ended up using my personal growth passion and turning it into a business of I coach women how to be confident, how to be more confident. And I run the gamut from 20-year-old women to 80-year-old women. And I love it because who doesn't need more confidence in life? And going through life with confidence is so much more fun than going through life without it.
Absolutely. And tell me about your I wasn't sure what competition you have won. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, when I was 60 years old, 10 years ago, my kids were heavily into CrossFit and I didn't even know what it was, but it was all the rage. And I walked into a CrossFit box one day and said, "This is ridiculous. I'm not lifting that stuff over my head. Those barbells are scary looking and they're loaded with testosterone. I'd never even seen one before in my life." Well, my kids were so into it. And I eventually, because I was an athlete, I eventually got involved with CrossFit, drank the Kool-Aid and loved it. But then I segued from there, Bailey, into doing the sport called Olympic weightlifting. And for those of your followers who are strength training or do CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting is the actual name of the sport where you do clean and jerks and snatches using a barbell. So basically you're lifting heavy things over your head. And I got into competing in Olympic weightlifting, stopped CrossFitting altogether, and devoted my time to this barbell, this crazy looking thing that was so heavy. I learned a lot about confidence from lifting that barbell. You don't argue with a barbell. And I eventually started to compete and I won Florida state champions in my age group and my weight group. I became was fourth in the country that year. I qualified for world championships twice, and then I eventually went on to win a gold medal in the Pan Am Games in the sport of Olympic weightlifting in the Dominican Republic.
Wow. Oh, how
And it really,
exciting.
honestly, I'm an ordinary woman, but I'm doing extraordinary things because of a couple of things that we're going to talk about. I got off sugar. I
Yeah.
increased my confidence. I gave my mind and body a chance to blossom. I'm just an ordinary person, but I started to do some extraordinary things. And that's what I help coach people on. And I would love to share some of that with your men and women today.
Oh, fantastic. I love especially what you said about allowing yourself to bloom. I allow yourself to blossom. I think that was something that happened to me when I quit sugar. So I have quit sugar for 4 months and that's it. So I'm at the baby beginning. But you're right. It's this veil that's lifted off your head that you're all of a sudden aware of your abilities because sugar was something I never ever thought I could stop. So
Mm,
tell us about your journey because I have heard you mention in a few of your reels that you did have a sugar addiction. Is that
yes.
right?
Oh, big time. I
Can you
still do.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Will you tell us kind of how that started 23 years ago, your
Yeah.
transition?
Right. And congratulations to you for being 4 months off of sugar. You never want to apologize. You're not a baby. You're at the beginning of your
Yeah.
journey, no question about it. But one day at a time, this is a beautiful thing that you have discovered. So, but again, for your listeners, anybody who's listening, don't be scared away by what I have to say. Just sit and listen and just be open-minded, right? It doesn't mean you have to give it up tomorrow unless you really want to. But I am almost 24 years off sugar. May 20th of 2000. It will be 24 years. Okay.
Oh,
Don't freak out, everybody. Don't run away. But my life I'm a sugar addict. I didn't care about booze, pot, cocaine, shopping. We all kind of have our little addictions or maybe big addictions, but mine was sugar. And looking back on it, I was addicted to sugar from the time I was 5, 6, 7 years old. I can see back now how I would just abandon everything to just stuff sugar into my mouth.
Mhm,
It fed me, it nurtured me, it filled me up when I was scared, tired, angry, lonely, hungry. I didn't know it at the time.
mhm,
So my life was pretty much a wreck in all areas of my life, and addiction to sugar had a lot to do with it. It was my outlet, Bailey, and I
mhm,
could never, and you said it yourself, I could never imagine going through life without it. And I didn't want to give it up, although I was miserable. So anybody who is a recovering addict and listening to this will shake their heads and say, yes, I understand. It is the great conflict. I needed it desperately. It was my oxygen.
mhm,
And my life was a mess. And really, when I was 48 years old, I was newly divorced with two little kids at home. I hated myself. I hated life. I didn't care about anybody or anything. I didn't have much of a career direction. Even though I loved personal development, I was floundering, and
mhm,
that happens. The only thing I cared about were my kids.
mhm,
And that's what I clung on to. And one day I was over at my neighbor's on a Sunday afternoon. I was bored to tears. I was just eating my way through the day. I took a bag of chocolate, Oreo cookies over to my neighbors. I said, Dan, what are you watching on TV? Just going to hang out with them. And he said, Shh, I'm watching a documentary on the Navy SEALs. Shh. I didn't even know who they were. Now, if anybody doesn't know who they are a division of our military. They're one of the highest, most elite divisions of our military. Hey, anybody serving in the military to me is elite, and I thank you, and I'm grateful for you. The Navy SEALs are particularly highly trained for very difficult areas of combat. I didn't want to sit there and watch soldiers in a documentary with Dan. But I had nothing better to do, and I didn't want to go home and be lonely and just eat my way through the afternoon. So I kept watching. Well, about 10 minutes into the show, I turned to Dan and I said, who are these guys? They're incredible. I mean, who doesn't love a guy in uniform? First of all, they're fit. They have integrity. They care about each other. They're disciplined. They have a strategy. They live a life of routine. They care about each other. I love their mental toughness. And I said, Dan, I don't have any of this. I'm such a mental weenie. I want what they have. I was really quite struck by them, Bailey,
mhm.
in spite of myself. And Dan looks at me, he says, are you on another one of your sugar highs? You now want to go off and be a Navy SEAL at the age of 48. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, I practically started crying. I got up and I threw the package of Oreos in his lap, and I went home and I cried deeply again. I hit my bottom again very deeply. And
Mhm.
boy, there's a beauty at the bottom when you hit a bottom. It can be very beautiful. That was the last bottom I hit. And I
Wow.
said, I can't do this anymore. I have children. I love my children. What am I doing? I'm so screwed up,
Mhm,
and my body is such a wreck. My sugar hangovers were horrible.
mhm,
And I said, I want to be like them. So they were my first mentors. And this was back before YouTube and
mhm,
the internet was just getting started. I would go to the library and study what a Navy SEAL was, how
mhm.
they trained, what their mindsets were. And the Navy SEALs were just regular guys, as they call themselves. We were just farm boys off of a farm in Texas,
Yeah.
and they were joining the most elite warriors in the world, but they had to be trained, and the military would broke down their mindset and changed their complete mindset.
Mhm.
And I studied this, and I said, I want their mindset. And Bailey, that day was the last time I ever ate any sugar.
Really? Wow.
It was the last day. Now I did a whole routine, which I can share, but it started first with realizing I had to change my attitude towards myself.
Mhm,
I had to I had to work on my anger because I was eating a lot out of anger.
Mhm.
I had to work on my self-loathing,
Yeah.
my loss of direction. I had to start believing that I counted, right? So anyway, that's the story of how I was hit very hard by this after a million hitting bottoms, the millionth in one time. I decided it starts with making a decision you want better and changing your mind.
Right. That has been one of the lessons I have learned is that it is not about the food. When I had a video go viral in January about all the benefits I was experiencing after going off sugar, and it resonated with a lot of people. And I think it hit at the right time in January when people are striving to make these changes and finding it very difficult. And seeing someone that had all these benefits, anyway, it blew up. But what people often asked me is, "What do you eat? And what are you eating?" Because I was losing all of this weight really quickly. And the message I was trying to get across is it's not about what I'm eating. It is my mind that has completely changed. And so I've created a guide for people and a workbook to help people change that mindset because it really to me I have noticed that it is almost assuming the person, becoming that person that you want to be before you feel like you can. And you just start taking those footsteps and it's just a magical process that happens, and I've found it so cool, and I love that you took this elite person, a Navy SEAL, and just started forming yourself into that, and I think we'd love to hear your routine that you went through, but I do have some questions maybe we should get to because it goes
Sure, fire.
along with your with what you were mentioning. Um, so when you gave up sugar, what was it that you gave up? And like everyone wants to know the specifics. What is sugar? What is sugar to you? What did you give it up? What did you give up specifically?
Yeah, really good question. Again, for everybody who's listening, this is what I needed to do to create to eliminate the rage and angst in my mind, the poison that I was putting in my body, and to create a healthy, joyful life for myself. Okay, so this was my routine. I had to go cold turkey. When you are addicted, as they say in the 12-step program, one drink or one cookie or one shot of cocaine or one snort of cocaine, one is too many. 1,000 cookies, 1,000 drinks is not enough. And if you're nodding at that, then that might indicate that you have some addictions to this. For me, I had to go cold turkey because I had tried many times before to do a halfway.
Mhm.
So what I did is I literally had to go cold turkey. And in my mind, I needed to put my children front and center because they were the reason I was doing it, not for
Mhm.
me. I had to do it for them. I eventually became the reason, but they were my motivation to begin with. Now, again, I'm forgetting what you're asking me. Did you want to know? Oh, so what do I eat? And so mindset is first. So for me, no processed sugar, meaning no added sugar, meaning no desserts, no food where the white stuff or the brown stuff is added to it, meaning honey, maple syrup, brown sugar, white sugar. If it's added to that, meaning a muffin, I don't eat it.
Mhm.
So there is no such thing as a sugar. Well, you can have a sugar-free muffin with stevia, I guess. I don't eat the fake sugars. I don't eat the artificial stuff because for an addict, my brain doesn't know the difference. So it will get triggered by the muffin or whatever, the candy bar that's got this stevia. I don't even know because I don't eat it. Iced
Mhm.
tea with stevia. My brain will get all lit up and say, I want more, more, more.
Mhm.
So I don't do anything fake. So really, I just stay off of cakes, cookies, ice cream, baked goods, anything that's got sugar. Ketchup. Well, let's read the labels. Again, my program, the Laura Eiman program, is if added sugar, cane sugar, fructose, all that garbage, if that is the fifth ingredient or more, I don't
Mhm.
eat it.
Okay.
Salad dressings. If the cane sugar or high fructose corn syrup is the third on the list, I don't eat that salad dressing. I make my own. Now your listeners may say, well, there's sugar in everything. No, there's not. And that's a mindset thing. I hear your angst, I hear your frustration, and Bailey, you're nodding.
Yes.
It's not in everything because I've been alive for almost 24 years without it. I shop the outside of the aisles. I don't shop the garbage on the inside. Okay, you have to read labels. Occasionally there will be a salad dressing that doesn't have sugar in it, or it's the sixth or seventh ingredient, and I'll buy it.
Awesome.
I make my own. Bread has sugar in it. Sure, it does. So buy bread that doesn't have sugar in it, or don't eat bread. Okay, I'm playing hardball with you all here today because your life depends on it.
I love it. We need
Okay,
that.
how am I doing? Want me to keep going?
Uh, do you have any other boundaries or
It's very clear I don't eat the stuff that's added. And
Mhm.
as a result, I'm naturally eating food that is not made in a factory, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not eating the crap that's now again, I stay away from bakeries. Bakeries are beautiful places. They're gorgeous. The food in there I love, but I just don't go there.
Yeah.
So no, and this is my game plan for me.
Hmm. I think that's so important that we all have one thing in the guide that I created, what a section is trust yourself. Because all of a sudden, as sugar was gone and I was creating these boundaries, I began to trust myself and have confidence in myself again that I could set boundaries and respect them. And so, as those boundaries have been set and sugar isn't destroying my mental capacity to make decisions, I can make these boundaries like you're talking about. I have decided that I will allow myself uh at most a tablespoon of either honey or maple syrup each day, depending, because I have a an elderberry syrup that I take for vitamin C, and then maple syrup just kind of ends up in some of the things that I make for my family. But if it adds up to a tablespoon of either of those, I just stop. And I have found it really easy. And it's been really good for me. But yeah, it just is this ability to trust yourself once your addictions are gone. It's your agency coming back.
Love that. Your agency is coming back and you're trusting yourself. We don't want to trust the sugar.
Right.
We don't want to trust the messages that are out there that this is a natural food. We want to trust ourselves and what we want, what's best for ourselves. Beautiful. I love that. Good for you. And you allow yourself that 1 tablespoon a day. If it does not trigger you,
Yeah.
listen up, listeners. If it doesn't trigger you, then maybe you're okay doing that. I could not do that tablespoonful of maple syrup. I would have 23 and 3/4
Mhm.
years go down the tubes. I'd make pancakes and pour half the I love maple syrup, the real stuff. I live near Vermont. Are you
Oh,
kidding?
right. Yeah.
It's sacred. But the important point is Bailey knows what she can do and what she can't do. What is a trigger food for you? That's a really important thing to ask.
Yeah, I agree. And at this point, and I'm really open to um modifying those boundaries as I am on this journey. Like I said, it's only been 4 months. I'm really just walking this and figuring it out and trying to trust myself. But being one thing about the Navy SEALs, there is a book that I want to read. I think it's called it's something about accountability, extreme accountability.
That might be by Jocko Willnick.
I
Mhm.
think that's right. Yes, I want to read that because I think that has been a really important lesson for me is this is all accountability. There's no one making choices for me. It is me who is putting these things in my mouth. And so if I see a sign that that thing is on my uncontrollable list or is making something fire in my brain, I have to be the one accountable to say, no, no more. One of those things was chocolate chips that are only sweetened with dates. And I was like, I could probably deal with that. Couldn't deal with it. It's
Oh,
gone. Can't
very
handle that again. So,
really smart, very good example. You test drove it and you quickly said no.
right.
Excellent. Extreme accountability. Jocko is a former Navy SEAL commander. I follow him. I watch his podcast all the time. Know the guy well, have all of his books. Extreme accountability is huge. We are not doing this for prizes. We are not doing this to get paid. We're not doing this to get promoted at work. We are doing this for ourselves because we love and care about ourselves, or we want to get to the point where we can love and care about ourselves. And so that is the reward, and we have to be accountable for that. So I'm so glad you brought that up. You're doing great, Bailey. I'm really proud of you. That's phenomenal what you're doing.
Thank you. You
You
are such a good confidence coach.
Thank you.
I love it.
I don't want people to suffer any longer than they have
Same.
to. This is where I might start to cry. I suffered too long in my life, but and I'm not going to start in with this, oh, it was meant to be that I was binging on sugar for 48 years. I don't like that. It's just painful that I wasted so much time in my life. But the important thing is that I'm not wasting any more time and I'm living life, and you're doing it the same.
Yeah, I have felt the same feelings of everyone needs to know this because the things I'm learning in my life now are it's a different life. It's a totally different life. It's awesome.
I'd like to share something here, which is
Please.
very, very important based on what you said. You're living a very different life. You're living a much better life, a much more joyful life, right? We have to want that.
Yeah.
And there are people, I'm going to be straight with you because that's how I operate. There're going to be people listening to this who really either consciously or unconsciously say, I don't want it.
Yeah.
And that is our choice. That is our personal choice. And my heart goes out to those people, but we all have choices. We're all adults here. You have to want it. And you have to want it as much as you need to breathe. Okay. Because the sugar, the alcohol, whatever the addiction is, has really taken over your mindset and it's stolen your soul. You have to want it. And there are people that say, oh, I do want it, but unconsciously there's something stopping them. Would you agree, Bailey?
I do agree. And there were definitely times in my life where I wouldn't have been able to do this and I didn't want to change. I literally loved the sugar. Loved. Like it was, I've told people it was my second husband.
Well,
And at times it could have been my first husband.
right. You hear that, listeners? I call it was my oxygen. For Bailey, it was her first and second husband, the love of her life. This is the stranglehold it has on us. This is not real. It's fake. It's the thief that comes to steal our souls in the middle of the night. Would you agree?
I do. I do. And it's so powerful to have power over it.
Ooh.
I love the feeling that I can walk past the cookie stores, the soda shops, the bakeries, and just kind of say, see you later. Not in my house, not in my temple. It-
Lovely. You love that you now have power over that thief.
yes.
Beautiful. You're such a great power of example for your followers. Listeners, she is the real deal. She's walking her talk.
Thank you. You're so sweet. All right. Okay. So I have a lot of followers that are my age with small children. My kids are 3 and 1. And it is this difficulty for us as young mothers figuring out how in this world, when we send them to school, when we send them to primary, when we send them all grandparents' houses, that they're being doted on by these leaders in their life with sugar, and it isn't always this ability for us as parents to micromanage wherever they're going, say, you're doing no sugar too. We don't do sugar in our house. You're not doing it either. How would you counsel us as young mothers, and I guess mothers of teenagers as well, to teach them or hold their boundaries for them? What are we supposed to do without restricting it so much that they will just binge on it when they get the
Correct.
chance?
Very, very, very good question. This is where you're going to see a grown woman cry a second time when you're on your show. Um, The hard truth is, and this is where when we get this, we really become grown-ups. The hard truth is we can't our children's eating habits. We can control them to a degree as long as they're living in our houses until they start to have a mind of their own at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, I have young grandchildren, so my grandchildren are 2.5 and 4.5. So I know what you're going through it, you young mothers. I see my grandchildren a couple times a week. We have influence and control over what these younger kids eat, but then they go to a birthday party or they're going to start to have overnights and they're going to be out and about. And plus, at school, and the message is everywhere, they're going to get sugar given to them constantly. So I'm in despair a lot over this, but despair helps nobody and it doesn't help me. What we need to do is understand that we can't change the industry by ourselves, but we can be the power of example.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice to all of you who have young children in your house, and you may even have spouses that love sugar and don't want to hear about it. That's more challenging.
Yeah.
But let's say for now you have a spouse that says, "Honey, I'm on board with this, no sugar in the house." What you're doing is you're teaching your children a very, very important healthy habit. And you are setting an example, and they are watching you like a hawk. It may not feel like it. And the minute they go to school, they come home with cupcakes, and they go to a friend's house and they come home with, having had 3 ice cream cones and 4 donuts. But the minute they walk back into your home, they're in their safe space with mommy and daddy, and they say, "Oh, right, yeah, we're not eating sugar here. We have raisins or grapes after dinner." They may throw hissy fits, they may throw temper tantrums, and that's where we have to keep our powder dry and say, "I understand, but sugar is very, very poisonous."
And
I under
you would refer to it as poisonous.
I do,
Okay.
do, because now here's where it gets tricky. Not every child is a sugar addict,
Right.
but what I'm seeing out there is a nightmare. You can't get into a grocery store aisle without passing racks of hundreds of pounds of sugar. You can't have a child can't go to their middle school science fair without having platters of donuts everywhere to reward them for coming. You
Yeah.
can't have a child go to camp and not clean up their cabin and get ice cream at the end of the week for cleaning up their cabin. It's everywhere. So I say, when they come to my house, I say, "Sugar is poison, and we have raisins after dinner." I am teaching them a different way of thinking, and they accept it. Now they go home and their mom and dad eat sugar, but they give them tiny little treats at night after dinner. They're not eating huge bowls of ice cream and cakes and cookies and donuts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very slippery slope, and you and your listeners have to decide what's right for you. For me in my house, we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
You're teaching them a powerful lesson, and then you have to let it go. And they come home from that birthday party and they're on a sugar high. You have to understand. Now, don't get me wrong. Birthday parties is a time and a place when you should have cake and ice cream. That's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, why are we getting rewarded for going to our science fair with platters
Yeah.
of donuts?
Why? Yeah. Let's keep it special. Let's not make it an everyday thing.
Right. If in your house, you and your spouse agree that you're going to give them a little, tiny little, individually wrapped like treat, one Reese's Pieces after dinner, that's might be fine for you. You have to figure out what works for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? But just the constant stream of M&Ms and ice cream flowing every time they have a temper tantrum or every time whatever
Mm-hmm.
is not right.
Right. I love that. And I've noticed a big difference in my kids since like I see when they have sugar from the grandparents or whatever. I'm like, "Oh, I see what's happening here." It's very easy to distinguish the behavioral things. And then we had a birthday party for for my son about it's been like 2 weeks, and we did do a birthday cake, and I gave him a smaller piece than I've ever given him. But I just realized, okay, this is appropriate for him. This is his size. He's tiny, and he didn't even finish it.
Oh my, really?
I was so surprised. He was
Wow.
more interested in the fun we were having, and I'm like, "This is golden. This is working."
Wow.
Yeah.
He may be somebody who does not like sugar. His body may not like it. You don't know.
Yeah.
But most kids, it is a trigger food and they want more and more and more, then you have to watch it. But the most important thing is to say, honey, I really understand. I believe you. I
Mhm.
hear you. This is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard. And we have sugar, we have birthday at birthday parties, but then when we come home, we don't.
Right.
Balance is really important unless you're a full-blown sugar addict. Going to the
Mhm.
grandparents, you can talk to the grandparents till you're blue in the face and say, please don't feed the sugar, but we're knucklehead. We don't want to listen because they're our grandchildren and you're going to fight a losing battle.
Yeah.
You can do the best you can. And I do believe in asking and saying, hey, would you at least give smaller portions?
Mhm.
Believe this, this is how we run our lives, and we would appreciate if you would respect us. When you ask, you never know. The grandparents may say, I agree, we'll get it out of the house, or they may not pay any attention to you.
Mhm.
You are creating a safe oasis, and just keep educating them. It's a
Yeah.
tsunami out there. It's a
Mhm.
tsunami out there.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for your wisdom on that. So okay, so I have a question from someone who is 63 years old, and they have given up sugar, but they have not lost any weight, but they'd love to lose 30 pounds, and they're asking, "Have you noticed any hormone level changes for the better, in this whole process of not eating sugar for the last 23 years?"
Hmm. Weight loss is tricky, and it's even trickier after you've gone through menopause and you're 61 years old. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a weight loss coach. Um, but I just will say from my experience that you're giving your mitochondria a whole lot more of a chance of doing their job, which is to take care of you and give you energy all day long and to reproduce healthy cells by staying off the processed sugar.
Mhm,
Losing weight is a 360-degree approach. It has to do with how much alcohol are you drinking? How much exercise are you getting? If you're not eating sugar, are you eating other kinds of junk food?
mhm,
There's a lot that goes into it. And
mhm,
then and then we have our metabolism. Our metabolism is very, very different after we go through menopause. And then you have genetics.
mhm.
Maybe, she's trying to lose 30 pounds. Well, I always say get off all the processed food and get off the alcohol, and you're going to start to see yourself losing some weight. This is easier said than done.
Mhm.
But I have a Navy SEAL mindset, okay? And that's what I preach. So for your listeners, if they want to do this, they got to get a mentally tough mindset and say, I value my body more than I value the alcohol or the ice cream. Depends on
Absolutely.
how badly you want it. But great question, and thank you for asking that. It requires more than just the sugar, but you're doing yourself a beautiful favor if you're getting off the sugar and getting off the alcohol.
Yeah. I the one thing that has come to me, because my weight loss has slowed down quite a bit, and I'm still not where like weight maybe I should be for my frame. So, I understand that, like, that can be really disheartening when when the scale isn't moving how much you want. But one thing I've also tried to get across to my followers is that quitting sugar, if you're relying on weight loss to be the benefit that you're expecting, it shouldn't be. And I feel like peace is really the benefit that comes with quitting sugar, and that should be your goal, is having peace and a mind of peace.
Lovely, lovely, Bailey. You're amazing. I agree with you. Some people will lose a lot of weight off the sugar. Some people will lose a little bit. You said you did, and then it's tapered off,
Mhm.
right? And yet the piece will never taper off. Your
Right.
life is just going to continue to blossom and grow. And who knows, down the line, with you being clean off of sugar, you're going to you could maybe take a turn and say, I really want to get into some strength training now.
Right.
I'm an Olympic weightlifter. I do know for a fact that, strength training, when you carry a lot of muscle on your body,
Mhm.
your metabolism operates at a very high speed. So I have a lot of muscle on my body. And so
Mhm.
I'm burning a lot of calories as I sit and as I sleep because that's what happens when you have muscle.
Yeah, that's a good
Your
point.
metabolism is percolating along 24/7. If you
Mhm,
don't have a lot of muscle and you're just doing kind of the treadmill a couple times a week for your heart rate, that's super important.
mhm.
But once you stop working out, your metabolism goes back down. You might be a little hungrier at dinner, but you're not burning calories and burning energy at rest. Like so, picking up doing a sensible well-educated strength training program so you don't hurt yourself is a great way to put on muscle, feel amazing, and then your metabolism's going to be cranking and you're going to start to burn calories, which means weight loss.
Great advice. I think
And
we all know that, but we always need someone to remind us.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and we all need mentors. Find somebody who inspires you, and follow them. I mean, I am not shoe shopping at night on Zappos. I'm watching Navy SEAL podcasts because they keep me sharp. So find somebody that you admire and start doing what they're doing. Find an athlete or somebody, follow Bailey, do her program. You can follow me on social media. I coach as well. Get with people who have what you want and then
Mhm.
start doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. Great advice. Okay, what role does fruit play in your life? Because I find myself binging on fruit, says this follower.
Well, yeah, that's very controversial. I'm going to keep it pure. For me, fruit is legal. Uh, if somebody says, well, I have strawberries that have been macerated with a little bit of sugar, I don't eat it.
Mhm,
I'll eat fresh strawberries, fresh fruit. I don't eat canned fruit. So if this person is eating a whole lot of fruit, I'm not sure I can comment on why. They
mhm.
might have it, maybe the rest of their diet is out of balance. Maybe they need a lot more protein and their body is craving energy. I'm not sure why. It could be a number of things. I eat a lot of fruit because I have a lot of muscle and I need the calories. Okay. If you're concerned about that, let yourself have 2 or 3 pieces of fruit a day, an apple, grapes. You might not want to have 10 bananas if you're trying to keep your carbs down and you're worried about glucose spikes.
Mhm.
You know, eat a high fiber fruit. If a little bit of raisins is fine, but you know, um, control yourself and say, gee, I want to have, an apple. There's nothing more delicious than an organic apple, right, Bailey? I mean, you
Oh,
get off sugar, an organic apple, yeah, they're expensive, but it's delicious. You can have one of those after dinner.
mhm. It
How
is
about,
impressive.
yeah.
Yeah, it is impressive how your taste buds change when you go off sugar. And one evening, probably a week into my husband and I both going off sugar, he was kind enough to quit with me. Such a blessing. But we were eating carrots. I think I had just made some like I boiled the carrots, strained them, put some butter and salt, and we were eating them. And I was like, these are very good carrots. And my husband looks over at me and says, are carrots sweet? And I was like, actually, these are sweet. It just didn't say carrots have always been savory or tasteless in my mind.
Correct.
But
Correct.
when my taste buds had a week to chill out from all the sugar, I realized that actual food is very sweet and apples are delicious, like you said.
They're delicious. Carrots are sweet. Apples are sweet. Milk has a sweetness to it,
You're right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is beautiful that you've discovered that. I will often on social media hold up a bag of M&Ms and M's and hold up an apple and say, this organic apple cannot compete with this bag of M&Ms ever, ever.
Mhm.
It will lose every time. And yet when you get rid of the M&Ms, and just as you said, your taste buds, in addition to your brain buds, because your brain gets all lit up from the sugar, when all that simmers down, and for some, it might be a month. For you, it took a week. It might take a month. It might take 6 weeks. When all that simmers down and you start eating the carrots and say, honey, did you add sugar? It's a beautiful thing. You discover how delicious food tastes.
Mhm. And what a blessing it is, because I used to tell my husband often, I hate food. And it was just this idea that I only wanted to be eating sugar, like we already talked about how much of a hold that has on us. But now I love food, and it's such a blessing. I love it.
It's so
Um,
wonderful. I'm so proud of you. That's outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really feel that I feel the ability to take in that compliment because I know how much hard work it took and what a hurdle it was, and I'm just 4 months, I would have never ever guessed 4 months, but here's to 24 years.
And you and I are here to support all your followers on their journey and how they want to do it, because
Mhm.
it's not, life is not a do-it-yourself program. This is hard
Right.
stuff. But I got a question for everybody. When was the last, when something's really, really hard and you do it, the reward is huge, right? I mean, when is something worth it that you care about not hard? I mean, think about childbirth. That's hard. It's worth it. Think about getting off of booze or pot or sugar. It's hard, but is it worth it? Uh-huh. So it's worth the grind.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Um, One thing that has happened to a lot of people is when they give up sugar, they start turning to other things to gain their reward. So, spending too much time on their phone, maybe turning to bread more often. There are different things. I I knew this would happen when I started because I knew it happened other times when I had tried to give up sugar. You look for other ways to fulfill that reward, that dopamine. And so I put some things in place that I knew I was going to go on a walk every day. I knew I was going to listen to my favorite music when I had those feelings. So I wrote some things down, and that's kind of in my guide and the workbook I made to kind of go through that before you start, or at least as soon as possible, figure out those things to turn to instead of these things. I'm just curious, do you remember turning to other things, and did you have parameters in place when you first started?
Great question. Great question. There's an expression, nature abhors a vacuum. In other words, we take something away, the sugar, we got to put something in its place. Fair enough. And this is really an important part of our recovery. To this day, I still have things in place because I'm human. I have emotions. Remember, I was an angry sugar addict. Well, I'm a person that still gets angry sometimes. And when I get
Mhm.
angry, I feel like eating, right? Not in the, at all in the same way that I did before, but we're human. We have good days and bad days. We have crises, tragedies, and how do you deal with that stuff? We have great days where we were proposed to, we're getting married, we're moving. All the exciting stuff can trigger us to eat. So I suggest, just like you said, good habits in place that are truly fulfilling. Now, for some of you, it may not be walking. It may be doing something else. Ramp up your exercise, hire a personal trainer, and start right off learning how to strength train if that's something you've always kind of been interested in, right? Do something that really is juicier than the sugar, more rewarding than the sugar. Okay. And also, I do believe you have to have some go-to foods. It
Mm,
is common to get off the sugar and go right to the bread.
mhm,
Bread is another addictive powder. They say the three white addictive powders are flour, sugar, and cocaine. It's not uncommon when you get off the sugar to go and start binging on dinner rolls.
mhm,
Okay, and I did that for a while. The dinner rolls did not have any sugar in it, but it was my secondary
mhm.
kind of addiction. It was a trigger food. So you want to be gentle with yourself and pick your battles. If you're getting off sugar, maybe you do allow yourself to have the bread for a while. I don't know. That's a decision you have to make, but you're getting educated here by understanding, oh, the bread's another trigger food, but at least I'm not eating the candy bars and the Ben and Jerry's.
Right.
Maybe you just cut yourself a break with that for a while, or not. It depends. My go-to for food, I need pizza. I love pizza. And I eat, go to a good pizza parlor and it's fresh, it's not out of a box. And it's okay if it's out of a box if that's what you want to do once a week. Or let's say you've just had a crisis or a tragedy. Eat your pizza if that's legal for you, right? As long as you're staying off the sugar. I love guacamole and chips. Now, chips are a processed food. They're made in a factory, but I let myself have them every once in a while because it's not going to kill me and I'm not going to then go and start binging on all the crap food and start going back on the sugar. It's just a one and done deal at night.
Mm-hmm.
And it fills me up when I'm having a bad day and I just need to cry in my beer about something. I have my chips and salsa, and then I'm back up on the horse the next day.
Yeah. Awesome. What are your parameters when you eat out?
I eat anything when I eat as long as it doesn't have sugar. If I want to have the dinner rolls, I have the dinner rolls.
And you're not because at the beginning I was getting pretty strict and I was actually calling restaurants before
Uh,
I'd get there and I'd ask about their sauces if they had sugar in them and so do you do anything like that, finding out the nitty-gritty if they have sugar in a sauce or in their bread?
good question. You can tell in the bread. I mean,
Yeah, it's
basically.
very quickly you can taste if it's sugar or not.
Right, you can tell. I mean, if it's no, because if sugar is a fifth ingredient or less in
Mhm.
my dinner, I'm okay. So if it
Right.
has a little bit of sugar in that tomato sauce, well, the whole lasagna, the sugar is so minimal, it's not a trigger food for me.
Hmm.
So no, I do not call ahead. I go and I eat my lasagna or the pizza or the fish and the
Hmm.
vegetables or the hamburger because all that stuff, I don't have the ketchup.
Right.
I'll do tomatoes. So there, that I'll stay away from. The dinner rolls, if they have a little bit of sugar, you can tell I just won't eat it.
Yeah.
Breadsticks usually don't have too much sugar. They have, so you figure it out.
Yeah.
Cutting
I'm
out,
start
cutting out for sugar is almost one of the easier things than shopping in the supermarket,
I agree. I
right?
totally agree. I have started to be more like what you're saying is like, you know what? I am not being triggered by when I go to a restaurant and I eat their chicken with with rice or whatever. I'm like, you know what? I don't have to call. I'm going to be okay. I can eat this. And sometimes I'll still look if like a certain sauce, like there's one chain here that has sugar in their guacamole, which I'm like, this why?
Ooh,
So
it's terrible.
I know it does sound terrible. Hmm.
Now, here's one example. Again, it's up to the individual. Barbecue
Mhm.
sauce is like eating ketchup.
Right.
Barbecue sauce on chicken wings, would I eat it? I might at this point, but I might stay away from barbecue sauce. That to me is the fifth ingredient or less because in the whole dinner, you could argue, well, Laura, then you can have ketchup. Ketchup is so, this is where I get in trouble. The barbecue sauce on the chicken wings, I'd probably eat. I don't really like barbecue sauce, so maybe it's not an issue. Cut
Yeah.
this out of here. Cut this out of here.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that just shows us as people on this end that, as you go through, you will figure out the things that work and you can trust yourself to figure that out. I love that. Um, Let me see if there's any other. I think I got to all of the questions that people had, but I am just soaking in all the wisdom that you have for us. And so I have a question just about this longevity because when you tell somebody that you're quitting forever, for someone who is addicted, that seems incredibly daunting and even extreme. And we're taught by very trendy nutritionists online and everything that everything is supposed to be within our the things we eat because there's no good foods and there's no bad foods. So the people who are telling you to give up like a whole food group are bad guys. But then I'm like, but this has helped me and it's not a food group. Sugar is a poison like you say. So I'm just curious, when you're telling somebody who is new to this, how do you get them to believe that this can be a lifetime commitment?
Mm, it's really a 12-step maximum, one day at a time. You're absolutely right. To think that we can do anything for a lifetime sets us up for failure, and we don't want to start.
Hmm.
So we don't even want to begin with that mindset. We want to say, what do I want for myself, my family, my job? my health, my life. What do I want for right now? It's very Buddhist to stay in the present moment, which is not a Western
Mm,
civilization popular way of thinking. Now, there's a lot more talk about it now, but it's hard for our minds to stay in the present moment because we're future tripping all the time and thinking about our past and planning uh, for next year. But you really have to stay in the day and say one day at a time, or I like 1 week at a time. This is what I want to achieve for myself. And then I'll start next Sunday night figuring out the next week. But I'm going to take, to use a funny expression, human bites and just do the next 24 hours. That's how every alcoholic who goes to AA successfully gets sober and stays sober. Even the people that have been sober 40 years say, I do it one day at a time.
mm,
So we don't future trip. So I would encourage everybody to just release that for a lifetime
mhm.
and say, what do I want for today or this week? Whatever your comfort zone is. You might say, I want to do a month. I mean, Bailey, how did you do it? Did you set yourself up for a day? If you think about it for a year, you're never going to get started. It's
Yeah.
incomprehensible.
Yeah, it was just a I have to find a solution because I'm spiraling and I've just described it to some people as diving off a diving board. I was really scared, but I just kept leaning forward and it just happened. And it was that day at a time. I had a calendar that I would write no sugar at the end of each day. And it was
Mm,
so empowering to see me write no sugar. And then it got more empowering. And then I stopped writing it after 10 days. I got really comfortable with myself after 10 days that this could keep going and I could trust myself a little bit more. And I didn't really think it was going to be a lifelong commitment until probably around day 30 that I thought, you know what? This has made the difference in my life. It's undeniable.
mm,
And I tried moderation so many times that I just had to really look at the evidence that this was something worth keeping in my life and not ruining by allowing myself the one bite or
right.
anything. And
Right.
so that it was day by day and it wasn't beginning with a this is forever. It was I need to fix today and then it was I need to fix tomorrow and then as it kept going it was like that.
Beautiful. I need to fix today. That's a great mantra for your followers. Beautiful. Just fix today. It's all we have anyway.
Yeah.
The future hasn't happened and the past is behind us. We know all that, but really focus on just what can I do for the next 24 hours?
Right.
Very good deal.
Yeah. So that was basically the beginning and my other question I had for you was was about that, but it's gone out of my head. Oh, well, this has been just the most incredible conversation and I felt so confident the entire time because of how you responded to me and the wonderful compliments you gave me. So thank you for that. I can tell you're an excellent confidence coach.
Thank you. And I'm really flattered and thrilled that you reached out to me. What you are doing is incredible and you exude confidence as well. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate
Thank you. Oh man, I hope we get the chance to speak again because it is incredible bouncing off of each other and the joy and the realization between both of us that there's this beautiful life that all can live. It is, and we're doing our best to show people that it's really exciting.
Amen. I agree. And I'd be happy to meet with you anytime. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will tell you the response that we get from my followers so you can see their joy because I know it's just going to be really a joyful thing to listen to this conversation.
Thank you.
Great. I will end the recording.